Welcome back to AI Search Explained by Rank 4 AI. I'm Adam Parker, and with me as always is Jimmy Connoley. Episode 20 today, and we're tackling something that's frankly keeping a lot of business owners awake at night: how to actually check if AI systems are getting your business information completely wrong.
And they are getting it wrong, aren't they? I mean, we're seeing this constantly in the audits we're running. Businesses that think they're doing everything right with their traditional SEO, but then ChatGPT is telling people they're closed on Tuesdays when they're actually open. Or Perplexity is recommending their competitor down the road instead.
Exactly. What I've found through our research into AI interpretation systems is that these platforms, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Copilot, they're not just pulling from your website. They're synthesizing information from dozens of sources. And sometimes those sources are outdated, incomplete, or just plain wrong. The problem is most business owners have no idea this is even happening.
Right, so where do we even start? If I'm running a restaurant in Manchester or a plumbing business in Bristol, how do I know what these AI systems are actually saying about me?
The first step is direct testing. You need to query these systems yourself, but not just once. I recommend testing at least 5 different ways of asking about your business across ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google's AI overviews to start. Ask, what are the opening hours for your business? Then try, is your business open on weekends? Then, what services does your business offer?
That makes sense, but I'm guessing the results are going to vary massively between systems.
Completely. In one audit we did recently for a legal firm, ChatGPT was correctly listing their family law services, but Gemini was only mentioning their commercial work, and Perplexity wasn't finding them at all for local searches. 3 completely different pictures of the same business.
So how do you systematically track all of this? Because asking 5 different questions across multiple AI systems every week sounds like a full-time job.
You're right, it can get overwhelming. That's why we built the audit framework we use at rank4ai.co.uk. But even without formal tools, you can create a simple spreadsheet. List your key business information: opening hours, services, location, contact details. Then test each piece across the major AI systems monthly.
Monthly feels about right for most businesses. But what happens when you find errors? Because I'm assuming you can't just email ChatGPT and say, hey, you've got this wrong.
That's where it gets interesting. Each AI system has different ways of sourcing information, so the fix depends on where the error is coming from. If Google's AI overviews are wrong, it might be pulling from your Google Business Profile or outdated web pages. If ChatGPT has incorrect information, it could be training data from years ago that's now inaccurate.
So you're basically doing detective work to figure out where the wrong information is coming from in the first place.
Exactly. And this is where traditional SEO thinking actually works against you. Most businesses focus on their website, but AI systems are looking at your Google Business Profile, your social media, directory listings, even customer reviews for factual information. They're building a composite picture, which means if your Facebook page still has your old opening hours from 2022, that could be what Copilot is telling potential customers today. Precisely. I've seen cases where a single outdated directory listing was causing 3 different AI systems to recommend the wrong address for a business. The owner had no idea because their website was perfect and they were ranking well in traditional Google search. That's terrifying. So what's the most common type of error you're seeing in these audits? Opening hours, hands down, especially for UK businesses that changed their hours during COVID and never updated every single online listing. But contact information is a close second. Old phone numbers, previous addresses, discontinued email addresses. And I'm guessing service descriptions are getting mangled too, because AI systems love to paraphrase and summarize. You're spot on. We worked with a marketing agency recently where Perplexity was describing them as a social media company when they actually do full-service digital marketing. Technically not wrong, but completely underselling what they offer. Potential clients looking for SEO or paid advertising services weren't being directed to them. So how do you fix something like that? It's not like there's a form you can fill out.
This is where the systematic approach becomes crucial. You need to update your information consistently across all the major sources these AI systems might be referencing. That means your Google Business Profile, your website's structured data, major directories like Bing Places, Apple Maps, and yes, even social media profiles.
But that's still reactive, isn't it? You're finding the error and then trying to fix it everywhere. How long does it take for AI systems to actually pick up the corrected information?
That's the million-pound question. From our research, it varies enormously. Google AI overviews can update within days if you fix your Google Business Profile, but ChatGPT might take months to reflect changes because it's working from broader training data. Claude and Gemini fall somewhere in between.
So you're basically playing a waiting game once you've made the corrections. To some extent, yes, but there are proactive things you can do. Regular, consistent posting of current information, whether that's on social media, your blog, or through press releases, gives these AI systems more recent data to work with. The key is consistency across all channels. What about new businesses? Are they starting from a better position because they don't have years of outdated information floating around? Interestingly, not always. New businesses often struggle with the opposite problem. AI systems simply don't have enough information about them to provide accurate recommendations. We've seen cases where Copilot would recommend established competitors over newer businesses that might actually be a better fit for the customer's needs. So there's a sweet spot somewhere between having too much outdated information and not having enough current information. Exactly. And that sweet spot requires ongoing attention. It's not a set it and forget it situation like traditional SEO could sometimes be. AI systems are constantly ingesting new information, which means you need to be constantly feeding them accurate, current information about your business. This is starting to sound expensive. Are we talking about hiring someone full-time to manage AI visibility? Not necessarily full-time, but it does require dedicated attention. I'd say most businesses need to allocate 2 to 3 hours monthly to monitoring and updating their information across AI systems. The cost of not doing it, lost customers who get wrong information or get directed to competitors, is usually much higher. So you're basically playing a waiting game once you've laid the corrections. That's the million-pound question. From our research, it varies enormously. Google AI overviews can update within days if you fix your Google business profile, but ChatGPT might take months to reflect changes because it's working from broader training data. Claude and Gemini fall somewhere in between. So you're basically playing a waiting game once you've made the corrections. To some extent, yes, but there are proactive things you can do. Regular, consistent posting of current information, whether that's on social media, your blog, or through press releases, gives these AI systems more recent data to work with. The key is consistency across all channels. What about new businesses? Are they starting from a better position because they don't have years of outdated information floating around? Interestingly, not always. New businesses often struggle with the opposite problem. AI systems simply don't have enough information about them to provide accurate recommendations. We've seen cases where Copilot would recommend established competitors over newer businesses that might actually be a better fit for the customer's needs. So there's a sweet spot somewhere between having too much outdated information and not having enough current information. Exactly. And that sweet spot requires ongoing attention. It's not a set it and forget it situation like traditional SEO could sometimes be. AI systems are constantly ingesting new information, which means you need to be constantly feeding them accurate, current information about your business. This is starting to sound expensive. Are we talking about hiring someone full-time to manage AI visibility? Not necessarily full-time, but it does require dedicated attention. I'd say most businesses need to allocate 2 to 3 hours monthly to monitoring and updating their information across AI systems. The cost of not doing it, lost customers who get wrong information or get directed to competitors, is usually much higher. Can you give us a real example of what that cost might look like? Obviously without naming names. We worked with a professional services firm where incorrect opening hours in ChatGPT were causing potential clients to think they were closed when they were actually open. They estimated losing about £15,000 in potential business over 6 months before they caught and fixed the issue. That's significant and probably pretty typical for businesses that are in competitive markets. It is, and here's what makes it worse. The business owners often don't realize it's happening. Unlike traditional search where you can track rankings and traffic, AI recommendations are much harder to monitor unless you're specifically looking for them. So monitoring has to be systematic. You can't just check once and assume everything's fine. Absolutely. And you need to test from different angles. Don't just ask, what are the opening hours for Smith's restaurant? Also try, where can I get a good meal on Sunday evening in your area? The AI might give different answers depending on how the question is framed. That's a good point. And I suppose different AI systems are being used for different types of searches too. Someone using Copilot and Microsoft might be looking for B2B services, while someone using ChatGPT might be looking for consumer services. You're thinking about this exactly right. Perplexity users tend to ask more research-oriented questions. Google AI Overview users are often in quick decision mode. Understanding the context of how each system is used helps you prioritize which ones to focus on for your particular business.
So if you're a B2B consultancy, you might want to pay more attention to Copilot and Claude, while a local restaurant should focus on Google AI overviews and ChatGPT.
That's a good rule of thumb, though I'd still recommend monitoring across all major systems. We've seen surprising patterns in our audits, like B2B clients finding service providers through Perplexity because they were doing detailed research before making decisions.
What about reviews and reputation? Are AI systems pulling negative information that might be outdated or even false?
This is becoming a massive issue. AI systems are very good at synthesizing review information, but they don't always distinguish between a recent legitimate complaint and an old issue that's been resolved. We've seen businesses where Claude was mentioning a customer service problem from 2021 that had been completely addressed.
That's where reputation management becomes crucial. You're not just managing reviews for potential customers to read, you're managing them for AI systems to interpret.
Exactly. And AI systems tend to weight negative information quite heavily when making recommendations. A few unaddressed negative reviews can significantly impact how often you get recommended, even if your overall rating is good.
So what's the action plan? If someone's listening to this and thinking, I need to check what AI systems are saying about my business, where should they start today?
Start with the direct testing we mentioned earlier. Pick 3 AI systems. I'd suggest ChatGPT, Google AI Overviews, and Perplexity, and ask them 5 different questions about your business. Write down exactly what they tell you. Then compare that to what you know to be true about your business.
And once you've found the errors, audit your online presence systematically. Check your Google business profile, your website's contact pages, your social media profiles, major directory listings. Look for inconsistencies or outdated information. Fix everything you can control directly.
Then wait and test again in a month to see if the changes have been picked up?
That's right. And document everything. Keep a simple record of what each AI system was saying before and after your changes. This helps you understand which fixes are working and how long each system takes to update. This has been really enlightening. I think a lot of business owners are going to be surprised by what they find when they start testing.
They will be. The good news is that most of these issues are fixable once you know they exist. The key is making this monitoring part of your regular business operations, not something you do once and forget about.
Any final thoughts for businesses that are feeling overwhelmed by all of this?
Start small. Pick one AI system and test it thoroughly before moving on to others. And remember, your competitors probably aren't doing this yet, so getting ahead of it now gives you a real competitive advantage. The businesses that figure out AI visibility first are going to win more customers.
That's a wrap for episode 20 of AI Search Explained. If you want help with auditing what AI systems are saying about your business, you can find our services at rankforai.co.uk. Thanks for listening. Next episode, we'll be diving into how customer questions are changing because of AI and what that means for your content strategy. See you then.